One thing I used to do a lot when I was younger is draw when I was upset, or basically vent art. And as of recent, I've been kind of needing it. So that's exactly what we're going to do this week. So hi everyone, I'm Ward, and welcome to my channel Wardrawsalot. And we're going to tap into some vent art, which I haven't done in a long while. For those of you who don't know what vent art is, I'll explain it a little bit. In its base form, it's an artist who does an artwork, and they let their emotions out in that artwork, and they're usually associated with negative feelings, or like anger and sadness, and will try and get those emotions out onto the canvas, just so they could feel a little bit better, or at least express themselves. Depending on the artist, their vent art may change because of the subject or how it is, and depending on the person, it can be very gruesome, very non-gruesome. It all depends on just a variety of factors. I used to do a lot of vent art when I was younger because I didn't know how to express a lot of emotions, and I still kind of don't, but like I've gotten a lot better with it now. But younger Ward did a lot of vent art, and a lot of those images are very they're not very nice. I'd like to say, not just artistic wise, but the content of it personally isn't for every audience, especially because a lot of the vent art that I would do would depict things such as harm or people doing things to themselves, stuff like that, just because that was the way I could describe it. Now, everybody does vent art differently. I'm much older now, obviously, so my idea of vent art is different because, well, I'm just not in that same mindset that I was 10, 15 years ago, so the way I would do vent art now is significantly different, but I don't hold it against younger Ward, and I don't suggest any of you hold any of your old vent art against yourselves from when you're younger, because that's how you expressed yourself, and now that you're older it's different. But don't hold it against yourself, because I definitely am trying not to because I didn't know any better, nor did I think that it was harmful to anybody else, because I was the only one looking at the drawings and stuff. But now, especially when I try and do like old sketchbook tours, I sometimes feel very iffy because a lot of those drawings are in my old sketchbooks, and sometimes I feel bad. I'm like, should I even bother showing this? If I do, I'll just put a warning in front of it, but then like, what if people don't want to see it anyway, or what if they skip the warning? Like, there's a whole bunch of different factors that go into it, so a lot of the times I'm very reluctant to do old sketchbook tours just for that alone. But I mean, like, if it's truly bad, I will just completely skip the drawing in general. But yeah, like, there's so many different factors to vent art, and it's not just regular everyday artists that do it. There were many famous artists who would depict their pain and anger and sadness through their art, and it would help them because it was a form of art therapy. Now, art therapy, I feel like, is kind of congruent. I think that's the right word. I'm trying to sound smart, guys. Sometimes I use two little words. I'm trying to like expand my palette on my vocabulary. But anyway, I feel like it's kind of connected to vent art. So art therapy and vent art are connected, especially because the whole point of art therapy is expressing yourself through a means of like psychotherapy. I believe it's a psychotherapy. Hold on, wait, let me look that up. Yeah, it's a tool of psychotherapy, which again means that it's mostly dealing with the mind and how you process emotions and stuff. It's basically how you insert your emotions onto something, or interpret them, or express them. So that's why I feel vent art and art therapy are kind of connected, because it's basically the same thing. You're expressing your emotions through the paper. However, vent art, I believe, is more so associated with a negative kind of thing, but art therapy at the same time kind of also tackles those negative emotions and any other emotions as well in that subject matter. I think the primary difference between both of them is vent art, you kind of just sit down on your own and do it because it's free. And then art therapy is, well, you have to go to a therapist for, and they kind of help you, walk you through your emotions and see what you're drawing, and then analyze the drawing, and then see where you're feeling and all that jazz. So that's, I think, the main difference between the both of them. However, they are kind of in the same direction or on the same boat. Now, like I said earlier, there were a lot of artists that we kind of look at all the time and appreciate their artwork, but we're using a lot of their experiences in life as their form of art or art therapy, we have a lot of those artists who would put themselves into the artwork, and it would be an obvious visualization of their pain or something, or their suffering. You could see it within a lot of famous artists. And off the top of my head, we have like Frida Kahlo. Frida Kahlo is incredible with her expression and a lot of her artwork. People found it weird at the time, or strange or different, and that's because it was a lot of the time you don't really have people expressing themselves in the way that, especially like she did, especially as a woman artist, which is, an entire different genre of a conversation. But realistically, she definitely put herself into her artwork. Vincent van Gogh is another huge person who put a lot of his life experiences into his artwork, and he had many different phases of his art to kind of put himself through that. He didn't just have like the Starry Night. He had like a lot of phases of where he was drawing scenes, and then self-portraits, and then expressions, and you could tell that each one really had a different mindset in place for that. Another artist that really like put himself into his artwork was Edvard Munch. He's the guy who made that Scream painting that everybody references with the hands on the face and everything, and it's constantly seen throughout media. He definitely put a lot of his life experiences in his artwork. I think he was like depressed, and he had like a really bad childhood, so like his only form of expression really was painting and drawing, so that's how he would express a lot of those emotions, and that's really important to know that a lot of these artists do that. Another one is Jean-Michel Basquiat, how he suffered with like drug addiction. He got famous very quickly, and that kind of ruined him. There was a lot of things happening with him too, and the best way he could express himself is through art. So like a lot of these artists will have definitely these ideas of who they are and how they use their life experiences and how they project it out onto something because they need to. You don't just sit there and draw something gruesome for the point of drawing it gruesomely, which you can. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people just like gruesome or like horrific art, and that's fine. That's cool. I like it sometimes. I can enjoy it in the artist's sense, but for me to sit down and do it, unless I like have to or need to, then it's not going to be off the top of my head. But when I need to think of something like that, like if I'm going to be drawing something like that, I personally think of my own implications. How does that benefit me or disbenefit, all this kind of stuff. Most of these artists who draw these kind of things that go down draw it for their benefit of feeling better or not feeling as negative, or getting it out onto something because that's how they can express themselves. Now, although you have the benefits of vent art, right? Like, for me, it's a benefit that I get my expressions out. Sometimes some people look at it as a disbenefit of vent art. And the reason why is because a lot of people don't want to view artworks that are like that. Some people just, they're not in the same place as you're gonna be, right? So let's just get that off the bat. Number one, everyone's in a different mindset all the time, and it changes throughout days to hours to minutes sometimes, right? So everything is definitely different. So where I am and how I do my vent art, and depending on what kind of content is in that vent art, might make some people uneasy. Now, granted, that's such a difficult conversation, right? Because I personally believe whatever you need to get out, you get out on paper, or write it, or express it a certain way. Like, sometimes I don't even draw art to do vent art. I do a lot of poetry, and a lot of those poems are like, they hold a lot of heavy emotions for me, and that's why I like, to keep them. Sometimes I don't want the visual, sometimes I just want the words themselves. And I noticed, like, when I would read my poems back to people, sometimes it would make them cry. And to me, it would be like, oh, I'm sorry, like, I didn't know that would happen or something. Because when you're venting something and you're truly writing it down and you're putting yourself in that position, you don't realize how heavy and how hard those emotions are until you see it through the perspective of somebody else's eyes. And that's why it's such a difficult thing for me to try and show a lot of people vent art. I guess because I don't want other people to feel that emotion, which is like, we're all going to feel certain types of emotions, but I don't want to subjugate somebody to something when it's very heavy, or if it's gruesome, or if it's, you know, something that isn't for the average everyday thing, you know, like the average conversation. So that's why it's like an important thing to me. But like, I personally, if I'm going to do vent art, it would be something like this that I'm showing you on the screen. It's a guy who comes in the room and you can see he's obviously disappointed. He looks over at the clock and he's like, what time is it? And you could tell he's just kind of tired. He plops himself on the bed and he kind of curls up into his pillows, and the window is open because he needs to let some air in, and you could tell it feels like he's suffocating a little bit, like he's just tired and that there's a lot of things on his plate. So that's kind of what I would draw now as opposed to when I was younger. And I'm kind of glad that I can translate my emotions a little bit better into this, because although it's a sadder, why'd I say it like that? Sadder piece of art, it's still digestible to somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not so blatant and heavy and hard to where somebody would be, you know, crying looking at it. But at the same time, some people want that out of art. Some people want those kinds of emotions to be elicited out of them because they don't know how to express themselves either. That's kind of like when we listen to music and we listen to sad songs and they really get us, and then maybe we cry from a sad song or we really feel it. Like, a lot of these medias are so important to digesting and understanding these emotions, and that's why I love doing art, or like art therapy in general, or listening to music or writing poetry, because vent art is so important. It truly, like, it talks about subjects that people don't want to talk about or are afraid to talk about, you know, and it's something that I truly I admire that people can do more than anything. I think showing emotions is something that is very brave, very incredible to do, especially, like I said, because I have problems expressing them very well. So that's really like the driving force for me, is like, that's why I love vent art, is for those reasons. And maybe some people don't know of it, or some people don't need vent art, and I'm happy for them that truly they can express their emotions the way they need to, or things in their life aren't so bad that they need to like do something like this. But everybody's different. Like I stated earlier, everyone's in a different spot in their life, in different positions, have different stresses and struggles and all that kind of stuff. And if art, which is super accessible, can be one of those things to help kind of connect to yourself and your emotions, then I really, like, I can't not suggest it. Like, I love suggesting it to people, whether it's coloring in a coloring book, picking up a pencil and just doodling and doing anything. Like, truly, if you can get into that mindset for yourself and it can make yourself feel better, vent art, I feel, is something very easy to handle, because it's your form of expression. It's the way you want to do something. It doesn't have to be perfect. It really can just have so many benefits, more than a lot of people even think. And you don't even have to be an artist to do it. You could just do it to do it, which is why I like it so much. Is a lot of these people who just start drawing. Maybe they get better along the way, like I did. I started drawing, I got better along the way, and eventually I became proud of my art, and I do everything different with it now. But for the most part, truly, vent art is something that I hold near and dear to my heart, and even like now, at my age, I still do it, and it's something that makes me feel a lot better. So, yeah. I hope you guys do vent art, or if you don't need to, then that's cool too. But, yeah, thanks for watching, and remember, I love you. Bye.